Survivor's ready. Go!
Travis spoken.
This island is pretty much full of only two things: snakes and rats.
The fake dead grandmother could easily go down as the dirtiest thing ever to be done in this game.
I am the king, and I am back.
But I've got the $1 million check written already. I mean, I'm the winner.
The winner of the first Survivor competition is Rich.
Direct from Hobart, it's now time for the only dedicated radio show in Australia devoted to the hit TV show Survivor, bringing you the latest news and the biggest interviews from the king of reality television. It's Survivor Oz, and here's your host, Ben Waterworth.
Yes, hello everybody, welcome once again to Survivor Oz, Australia's #1 TV and film podcast, as we come to you once again for a Juan Del Sur exit interview. It is Wednesday. It means we get to speak to the most recently eliminated contestant from the 29th season. This week, Julie McGee will sit down with me in just a few moments to chat about her time on the show, and a lot of people are very intrigued to hear from Julie given the circumstances of her exit, and I am very much looking forward to chatting with her. Just before I get started, as I do take this opportunity before every exit interview, if you happen to be listening to this via iTunes or Stitcher or another service that you have downloaded this without having to visit our website, highly recommend visiting survivoroz.com, because our wonderful Ozlet Noah Groves has sat down and taken time to write out a pretty comprehensive preview of this week's upcoming episode. No spoilers if you're worried he's going to spoil you on anything that happens. There's no spoilers related to it. They're all based off watching video previews that CBS has sent out. So he goes into a bit of analyses there. You can also see clips, secret scenes from last week's episode, some video interviews with Julie, as well as some other videos there from the last week or so of Survivor to really get you in the mood ahead of tomorrow night's episode of Survivor. But right now, I am going to bring in our guest for today, eliminated last week from the 7th episode of Juan Del Sur, the one and only Julie McGee. Julie, welcome to Survivor Oz.
Thank you. I'm really excited to tell you all about my experience out there and really give you the dirt.
Well, that's what we like. We like the dirt, Julie, because I guess I usually take this opportunity at the start of every interview to sort of ask how things have been, given it's nearly been a week by the time we get to do our exit interviews. But given the circumstances of your exit, I can imagine it's been a little bit more difficult for you. I mean, have things kind of calmed down really since the initial reactions that happened online and from everything else since your your episode aired last week?
Yeah, the dust will always settle at some point. But I have found, how many days, 5 days later, that I really have quite a few more supporters than bashers. At first there were a lot of haters kind of coming out of the woodwork and saying this and that, but I've just seen more people that really connected with me on the show and connected with my personality and really enjoyed watching me and said maybe I could have done it different, but that was you out there, not me. So it's actually been a lot better than I thought it was going to be.
Well, I mean, from my perspective, we see a lot of the comments and things that said by the fans in the superfan community. A lot of negativity. But I mean, I want to kind of find out the flip side, what you're just mentioning there. I mean, from all the messages of distaste that you got, did you find that surprisingly you were getting these support messages? I mean, were you expecting, I suppose, messages of support from people, as you were saying, who kind of were feeling for your situation?
Yeah, I was not expecting supporters. Like I just said a second ago, I am so good with myself, and I have tons of friends and family, and that love me and know who I am at heart. But I didn't really see that I would have quote unquote fans or supporters. So I guess luckily I fought as long as I could, and that was, somewhat long enough for a few people to connect with me and really see who I am. through all the elements, through all the stresses and all the things that I was going through out there.
Well, you've been asked a question a lot in the last week, of course, about the exact reason for why you quit. I mean, from the reason I saw it, I mean, it seemed sort of a week ago or so ago that you were kind of thinking about doing it. Then it looked as though like Missy had kind of talked you into staying, and then all of a sudden you were wanting to pull the pin again. I mean, what was the catalyst for you to sort of pull the pin? Was there a specific moment that you were like, okay, this is it, I'm done?
You know, it wasn't really a moment, a defining moment or a straw. The catalyst would be multiple things kind of all coming together.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to tell you, I appreciate you mentioning the details and kind of the timeline of how you could see things chipping away at me, because a lot of people do not want to take the opportunity to mention, okay, yeah, I saw that you were really run down the first time that you guys were at that challenge, and Jon and Natalie were yelling back and forth at each other. I thought that he was just being this awful person over there, and you know, the cameras were picking it all up. So that was just that wore on me hugely. And then the rainstorm, that just about took it out of me. And then I was thinking it was going to be just some wonderful, you know, come together kumbaya moment at the merge. And once we got back to camp, I realized there were so many couples caring for each other, and not really the alliance so much. And I was feeling really vulnerable, and I felt like if Jon was there at that moment, I could have made it longer, without a doubt.
Yeah, it would have been very interesting to see how that would have played out. And I guess one thing that we always see from people who, you know, voluntarily leave the game, you know, I mean, their edit is always portrayed in a different way. We've had numerous quitters over the years have just been ignored. Some have, you know, been shown in different lights. But do you feel as though the edit that you were given, particularly in that final episode, was fair and justified kind of on how you left the game? Or was there more maybe that we should have seen?
There was I mean, there's absolutely more than you could have seen. You know, there's no way of going back. Like I said, no way to regret, no way to change. It's all out there. There's no way to. But yeah, if there was an opportunity to say, well, let's look at a little bit more, I would be fully pushing that motion there, because you know, they're showing me laying out on the beach and everybody going, oh, she's not doing anything, she's selfish, she's hiding this, and look at her, she's only looking out for herself, which is completely untrue. I worked so hard around camp. You know, I was a girl on my original camp. I wasn't afraid to pick up a hatchet, wasn't afraid, you know, to pick up the machete and really use it. You know, other girls didn't even touch it. You know, I'd bring in firewood, I would cook, I would go out and I would find, you know, the snails with everybody and collectively help everybody deshell them. And I was really helping out. So you didn't get to see a lot of that. And you also didn't get to see a lot of me interacting with my so-called alliances. I didn't talk a whole lot with them. I was more so just kind of on board for helping them make the best decisions. But I wish a lot of it more of that could have been shown. And, you know, the very last episode, I was really happy that Jeff was nice to me, you know, because at least I could save some face there. He wasn't, you know, I was afraid he was going to be just awful to me. But, you know, there are a lot of things that people don't realize, and a lot of people that do realize there's just so much that goes on behind the scenes and with production. And I was not thinking at any point, okay, from start to the time that I left, that I would actually leave. I mean, I felt like I was dreaming when I left the island that night.
Wow. There's all these different things that we all would love to know, no doubt, Julie. But I mean, going back to kind of what you mentioned with alliances and everything like that, I mean, sort of before the switch, it appeared as though you were closely aligned with Jeremy on Hanapu. Was this the case? Was there more to this alliance structure than we ever got to see?
There was, you know, I always felt that I was really safe and could trust that I was supported in an alliance with, you know, Jeremy, and Natalie. Those two definitely, and then whoever else they felt close with, and they felt that, you know, they could trust. But those were the two that were those were the two people that I felt I could trust no matter what. Let me rewind a little bit. Natalie, I felt I could trust no matter what. When it came to the alliance part of it, because she let me in on so much information that I knew that she wouldn't be telling me this if she didn't feel that she really wanted me to trust her and be a part of this alliance. I saw Jeremy talking to so many people, I didn't know what he was doing. But he would always come and reassure me which was never shown or, which was never televised. You never saw him coming to me saying, "You're good, we're good. I know you're awesome. I can trust you. You can trust me." But that was said all along. And, I had lots of moments, really deep moments with Missy. But those were just moments we shared outside of the game, I guess, because I felt like those moments were bringing us closer together to support each other through the end of the game. But in reality, I guess we just connected as friends.
Well, it was interesting kind of seeing that, sort of as I was mentioning before, when Missy was sort of talking to you, and it looked as though she'd gotten you to stay in the game. Because, I mean, if you were in the game and we kind of went to Tribal Council, we were seeing this huge Josh v. Jeremy thing really building up, and it looked just before we saw kind of you with Jeff, like Jon and Jaclyn had sided with Josh and Reed, and Jeremy was in trouble. Do you feel this was the case? Was Jeremy gone had you stay there, or do you feel as though Jon and Jaclyn actually were with you guys?
I don't think Jon and Jaclyn were with us. I don't. I think, it's so hard to determine and think what would have happened if Jeremy hadn't been there. I mean, first and foremost, I knew I wasn't on the chopping block, so that's not why I made the decision that I did. And I know that Jeremy or Josh, one of those were going to be the ones to go home.
Okay.
That night, but it was so hard for me to read Jon and Jaclyn. It was so, and I feel like Jon had it out for me from day one. I just don't think that he appreciated who I was and wanted me to be anywhere near an alliance with him or him and Jaclyn for that fact.
It's fascinating. Fascinating. Who are you rooting for at this point of the game, Julie? Who do you want to win? From all the crap I've heard Jeremy talk about me and then talk about Jon as well. You would think I wouldn't say this, but I do feel that he and his wife are really good people, and they have children, and I think they could really, 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 really benefit from that prize money more than a lot of people. I'm on Team Jeremy, I will admit. Now, I've got one last question. Here's the listener question before we wrap this up. JD Zinda, this is a good question. I actually like this one. Who wanted to go on Survivor more, you or Jon?
Wow. I feel like it was, and I hate to do this, but I do feel like it was an equal motivation. Mm-hmm. As soon as we found out that we were, of course they didn't let us know until right before, but we pretty much knew we were in. Jon was like in game mode, right? He's like, we're going to go run stadiums, we're going to go swim, and I'm like, dude, we're not going to go for a triathlon. You realize? It's like we need to focus on, and for me, I'm like, okay, I need to focus on drinking my calories and get used to not eating as much. And, but I knew that I used to love to go camping. I grew up in the woods, and I have not once been able to get Jon to go.
Wow.
So I knew that he was going to be miserable. I mean, if that kid doesn't have 2 showers a day, he's in a bad mood. So I knew I had that over him because I'm just like, whatever, I'll shower someday, But, so I think it was kind of a balance, when you kind of break down all those different things that we were going through and who we are.
Wow. There you go. There's that image of John Rocker. A lot of people now have gotten their head. Great. Good. Julie, thank you so much for your time here on the show. It's a pleasure having you on. Look forward to getting you back on the show in the future, perhaps. Chat a little bit longer and more in depth about your time on Survivor.
That sounds great. Thank you.
And a big pleasure there to have Julie on the show. Very interesting. And there's a whole lot there, I feel, to Julie's quit or exit that we do not know, and hopefully one day we will be able to hear the full story. Of course, you hear me say at the end of every interview that we would love to get them back on the show to chat a little bit more in depth about their time on Survivor. We mean that, and we are planning on doing that, of course, gradually. So we do not count these as off our interview tally as such. So if you've been paying attention to our interview tally on the right-hand side of our page, we haven't been ticking off every time we get someone Del Sur contestant, because we're separating exit interviews from full interviews because we want to sort of go in more in details and everything along those lines. But as always, I will take this opportunity right now to thank CBS and Channel 9 for allowing us the opportunity to speak to Julie and, of course, contestants every single week here on the show. I always take this opportunity to give a bit of a plug for things coming up, given that it is nearly time for the 8th episode of San Juan Del Sur. What's ahead, I hear you ask? Well, this week's episode recap, if you didn't hear from last week, we have 2 Philippines contestants, Abby Marie Gomez and Pete Yukowski, joining us. The first time, I believe, as a couple they've ever been on a podcast together. So there you go. They will be joining us to recap this week's episode. If you've got a question for Pete or Abby relating to this week's episode or the season of Survivor in general, please survivoroz@hotmail.com.au. Email them into us or wait till we post it up on social media and you can comment directly to that. Our Oztopsy, 10:30 p.m. live directly after the Australian airing of Survivor on Go. That's Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time. For American listeners, that is 6:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Queensland listeners, that's 9:30 p.m. in Western Australia. I don't know how, I think you're 3 hours behind us, so 7:30 p.m., whatever. And I can't even tell you for other time zones. I'm not going to sit here through every time zone. Maybe I'll do that one week to really annoy people. Of course, our power rankings, at the time of recording this, we haven't got our ones out for week 7 yet. I've actually only just gotten Troy's hand sent to me today, and it looks as though we might be having another week without Sandra's rankings, so we'll wait and see how this goes. They will be up hopefully a little bit later today, so check those out. And as always, we'd love to hear your opinions on any of our articles. Please feel free to comment them on our website, on social media, everything else along those lines. Also today, we have another top 10 out. I should really plug our top 10s. I don't do that enough, given that we do these on a Wednesday, and I should really plug them. Today, top 10 moments of accidental slapstick comedy. So, 10 moments that were funny, basically, that were accidental. Our Ozlet Bridget has sat down and put these together. Quite entertaining, quite funny. That you'll have a chuckle, no doubt. So head to survivoroz.com to read those. And a shameless plug for our other 2 shows, of course, The Amazing Race Oz. Be up a little bit later today, hopefully, or tomorrow. Noah Groves hosting that, and Alex Morella doing the fantastic written recaps. And Big Brother Oz, hosted by myself with Ozlet Kristen, joined today by Season 3 winner Regina Sorensen. So check that out if you're a Big Brother Australia fan. That's about it for me today. However, on this exit interview, remember you can tune in to Survivor, 8 p.m. Eastern on CBS Wednesday nights, 9:30 p.m. on Go. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time, that of course is here in Australia. Thanks very much for tuning in. Until next week, the tribe has spoken. We will speak to you on the trains.